Hi everyone and welcome to In the Studio with ITV. I'm your host Matt Blow and today we have Jim Nash, our Water Resource Commissioner for Oakland County. How are you doing today, Jim?
Just great.
Good. Well, first things first, let's ask the most basic question. What is a Water Resource Commissioner?
Well, originally it was called the Drain Commissioner, a county drain commissioner. They've been around since the 1890s. Historically, when Michigan was founded, we realized that really we were giant swamps. So farmers started building drains so they could have arable land to grow their crops. When one farmer would fix their land downstream, the next farmer would get flooded. So they decided to have a system where everybody would contribute towards containing flow so they could have agricultural land. Since then, it's been much more complex. My office, we're a water resource commissioner. There's about 8 of us in the state. Because our offices do much more than that. We do way more than just drains, especially agricultural drains. My office operates and maintains about 20 communities, either water, sewer, or both. We also run major stormwater systems all across the county that serve multiple communities. We have inter-county drains that go from Oakland County to Wayne or Macomb County that we oversee with those other counties. So we do way more than that. We do erosion control. You ever seen the silt fences along construction sites?
Oh, sure.
That's so erosion doesn't get into your nearby lakes, rivers, and streams. So that's one of the major sources of pollution. So we oversee that. We oversee lake levels all over the county. Lake improvement boards all over the county. We do just a wide range of services, and that's why we're more than just a drain commissioner.
And it sounds like you guys are very much tied in with a lot of like the local DPWs of the various counties and townships and things like that, just to make sure our water stays as healthy as it can be.
Absolutely. Up this way, the northern part of the county, it's more to do with drains. Some communities we operate, they're smaller well-based water systems like Oxford Township and a few of the others up this way. But most of you guys have private wells on your own land, and we don't really deal with that kind of stuff. That's the health department that does that.
Sure. You touched upon it a little bit already, but so what would you say your office does specifically, aside from just collaborating with all these different entities?
Again, we do stormwater collection. Stormwater is really the biggest issue that faces Oakland County. So polluting our lakes is vitally important that we prevent that because it has a huge impact on our economy.
Sure.
If you live near a lake, you have a higher property value. There's much more, we bring in a lot of tourists for that, even though on the southern part, we're a very urban county, but on the northern part, we're very rural. We have a lot of lakes, so it's just beautiful. And I fish a lot, so I want to make sure the fish I catch are good and we have beautiful places to fish. And so it means a lot to me.
Sure. What is the most important water pollution issue facing our county here in Oakland?
Again, stormwater is really the biggest issue. After the Clean Water Act from the 1970s, we regulated industrial waste, we regulated sewer wastewater treatment plants. Those are called point sources because it comes out of a pipe or something. Non-point source solution is called is stormwater. That means it's when rain falls from the sky, it rolls off whatever it hits and then it collects in our stormwater systems. Most of our separated systems, like you have in the northern part of the county, there's no cleaning of it. It goes right from the road into the nearest stream or lake. With it, it carries oil off the road, brake dust off the road, pollutants off the roads. So it's important we try to limit how much gets in there. The new push now is for green infrastructure. What green infrastructure does, rather than build big gray infrastructure like pipes and pumps and all these giant things underground that cost a lot of money, you're trying to mimic how the natural land absorbs rainwater. So if you can absorb that rainwater before it reaches the stormwater, that's that much less polluted water that gets in our lakes, rivers, and streams. So we work with communities all over Oakland County. The DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality, is very concerned about this, so they want communities and counties to work together to solve these issues. We've been a leader in those kind of areas in Oakland County, and we intend on keeping that up.
Sure.
So, doing the newest technologies, all the things education around that's the most important thing.
So what can residents do to kind of help minimize impacts or even kind of help out your organization to kind of make sure that they're negatively impacting the environment as little as possible?
Well, for the pollution from stormwater, especially in areas like this where you have a lot of lakes, if you live on water, whether it's a stream, river, lake, that's called riparian land. That means your water comes up against your land comes against whatever water body it is. So if you have grass going right up to the shore of a lake or stream, and you fertilize that grass, you do things with it. Every time it rains, the water comes across and pulls that fertilizer into the water. What the fertilizer does is there's natural occurring bacteria in all fresh water. That's why you shouldn't ever drink just fresh water. But when you put fertilizer on top of that, that's the food that allows those bugs to grow way more than they should. Last year we had 28 beach closings in Oakland County because of bacterial or algae growth that was dangerous to humans. So it's always there, but if you don't have that input of fertilizer coming off of private land, you'll have much less growth and you'll have less problems with it. So we try to encourage people to put something called a riparian buffer along your shoreline. So if you've got grass that goes right to the shoreline,
I live near a
right,
place
you
that has
pull
a
it
lot of
back
boats
about
and
10
stuff.
feet, and then you can put in some more pervious ground, and then you put in local deep-rooted plants. So when the water comes off that grass, it hits that pervious ground and goes into the ground instead of going right into the water and bringing all those nutrients in. So the more people can do that, the better your long-term health of your lakes will be. So like I said, I go fishing a lot. So every year I go fishing and I see more people doing that to their land. So people are realizing that if they have a role to play in protecting their water resources, and the more education we can do about that, if you have land on water, please contact my office. My website is oakgov.com, oakgov.com/water. Once you get on there, just search the site for stormwater, and we'll have all kinds of resources for you. So the more people are aware of that, the more they can do on their property. And it's really not very expensive, and it's a garden, so it looks very nice along your shoreline. So it's aesthetic, it looks good, and it really serves that lake. It really helps that lake not have pollution problems.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I live near a lake as well, and I've seen people that have just kind of grass, but I've seen some people with that metal barrier, and I was always kind of curious, like, what the reasoning is or the differences are, and it sounds like a lot of that is to help kind of stop those other chemicals or whatever getting into the lake.
No, I understand completely, and a lot of people do put in these storm barriers. It's either they're rock or metal. The problem with that is it changes the edge of the lake because the wave action kind of wallows out the ground in front of it. So there are some issues with that. You have to have a permit from the state to do it. We try to encourage people have a gradual go in on their property, have a gradual slope into the lake, and then put some of those shoreline plants on there. The plants will hold that water without having that dugout in front of it. So there are a lot of ways of doing that. My office has some information around that, and also the DEQ does too. They have a lot of information around that.
So more about keeping it kind of as natural as it can be to help the environment.
The stone walls and the metal walls, I mean, it stops the erosion of your property, but the erosion starts going into the lake. And after a while, the stone will fall in because it wallows out below it. So you got to be careful. Again, you need a permit to do it. We really encourage natural plantings because it's just what it was originally.
Right.
So.
Right. So what lead has been a big issue that people are very concerned about. What are some things that are being done to mitigate lead getting into our water system?
Well, the lead issue is not in the water systems themselves, because those are tested on a regular basis. The water coming in when we have lead issues is if you have a lead lining, if you have a lead lead that comes from the water main into your house, or a lot of people have in older houses, there's lead in the solder in pipes. Any house built before '74, there's often lead in that solder. In any fixture built before 2014 still had lead in the fixtures in the brass. There was a certain amount of lead that was allowed in that brass. What happens is as the water goes across these things, they can pick up some of the particles of lead and they can get into your drinking water. For many years, in any system that serves more than 12 homes, you have to do annual lead testing, and if there's any sign of lead, you do lead abatement, which means it's something called corrosion control. It's an additive to the water. It's called orthophosphate, which is a natural, in all our cells there's orthophosphate. It's something you put in water, but what it does is when it touches metal, it lines the inside of pipes. So all the water that you get from water services like the Great Lakes Water Authority and anything is going to have this in it. So your pipes in your house, even if it's lead, it's got a surface on the inside that doesn't let the water touch the lead. So 99% of the time you're safe. We do testing every year, like on the services we do. We do testing every year, and the vast majority, we've only had a few cases in the past 15 years where there's been any lead that's been found at all. The vast majority is non-detect in our system, so we're pretty good. The state did do some changes to the law recently where they made it, the lead levels where we have to do something that have been shrunk, and they've changed the way we make sampling to make it more representative of the water that's in these pipes. So we're fine with that. The rule does have some issues with how our offices or local communities can do the enforcement of it, and we're working with the state to try to correct those, but otherwise we're good with the rule. We understand where they're coming from. We want to get these lead lines out. It just has to be done in a way that's not going to break the bank for the local community. So we're trying to work with the state to get some changes to the rule to make it better, but again, we're a kind of a leader in the nation in addressing lead issues, so we're proud to help, and we want to do it in a way that's based on health and science rather than just doing it in a straightforward certain number every year. So we have some issues with it, but we're working closely on it. And again, in Oakland County, we've really not had very much of a problem with lead for a long time, especially from drinking water. We've never had a case in Oakland County that's been linked to drinking water. So the biggest issue with lead has always been lead paint and dust in homes that have lead paint. But there's other issues around that. So as far as water is concerned, we think we're doing quite well, and we're going to make sure that everybody's water is safe as long as we're in the business. So.
Good. One thing we were talking about the show briefly was there's new contaminants. I believe one of the big concerns is PFAS, if I'm saying that correctly. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
PFAS is a new kind of that's just become much more aware of in the past few years. Originally, PFAS came from Teflon. Teflon in pots and pans. It doesn't nothing can stick to it, right? Yeah. And it grew from there. That was starting in the 40s, and now it's in so many things. It's just staggering how many things in there. If you get paper, if you get go to a fast food place and get a hamburger, the paper that in that hamburger's is often treated with PFAS. That way, it doesn't absorb the liquids and the greases and stuff. But it's just in so many things in our everyday life that we just don't recognize it. But now it's one of those cases where there's a lot of chemicals that people don't realize that have never been tested, never been regulated. They don't know what the effects on humans are, and we're just coming to terms with that. And we keep discovering issues that we didn't realize were existing before. So really, Michigan is a leader in this. Really, the only state that's really gone in a significant way to try to correct the issue. So you got to give credit to the state for that. What they've been doing is several-fold. We've tested every single water source we have, and all of them are free of PFAS that we found, that we own and operate. There were some small well systems that they found that served like apartment complexes or small subdivisions that they found that had been contaminated with PFAS. PFAS in drinking water, there's a very simple filtering method that you can get it out of, so that's not really the biggest issue. Once it's discovered, we can do filtering and it's not a problem. The big issue is it's out in the nature. It's out in all our surface waters. We see it at certain levels. Kent Lake down in the bottom part of the county, and off of that comes the Huron River. They found significant contamination there, so they recommend no eating of fish from the Kent Lake or from the Huron River all the way down to the lake because it's big enough. But so the big issue is how we're gonna treat it once it's in the nature. That's going to be a long-term thing because these are chemicals that are very durable, so they last a very long time in the environment, which is not good. Places like basically military sites like in Macomb County, Selfridge, they've had a lot of it because they do constant drills with fire suppression, and PFAS has been in fire suppression for decades. So they have a lot of contamination. In Jackson, there were some plants, some industrial plants that had used it for many years, so there's been a bunch of contamination there. All the systems that we operate that have industrial users, we've contacted those industrial users to see if they have in the past or are currently using any of these chemicals, and so far we haven't found any in Oakland County. So that's kind of why we're thinking that we're fairly safe. It hasn't been banned yet nationwide, but there's talk about it, and a lot of companies are using much less of those chemicals now because of the long-term impact. So I think we're heading in the right direction, but again, these are long-lasting chemicals. This is going to be an issue that's with us for decades, and I'm not sure how we're going to really solve it in the long term in terms of getting rid of it. It's just it'll over the maybe centuries it'll start to dilute because it'll break down, but this is again it's a long-lasting chemical. So again, my office isn't doing that much with it, except for the systems we operate. This is a DEQ issue, and they're very much on top of that.
Well, good. It's interesting that you mentioned the fire suppression, because I've heard things from our local DPW department about the various things, but one thing I remember them talking about was we had a fire in our area, and the fire department, came to put out it, but they called the DPW to make sure, like, hey, we're all this water, this building's burning down, we're trying to make sure we are diverting it in the best way possible. Just kind of little things like that, I don't think the average person thinks about when a bunch of water is going through their community.
No, right.
The other things, and we touched upon this when we were talking before the show, but you mentioned the manure stuff earlier, but some other things that people don't always realize are things like people that are flushing antibiotics or certain kind of flushable wipes. Could you maybe touch upon the negative effects those things have? Oh,
absolutely, and I was going to speak about that because, there's two different things. What you're talking about with the antibiotics, that is definitely an issue, and one of the big issues is with antibiotics is we're creating microbes with resistance. When we have it, so they get it, but it's not enough to kill them, then they build a resistance to it. So that's definitely an issue. Please do not flush your pharmaceuticals. There's almost every police station in Oakland County now has little depository boxes that you can just take whatever prescriptions you have, drop them in those boxes, and they will destroy them, and they won't pollute anything. So please do that. There's two really big issues that people just in your private life can do that can help our infrastructure. One is the ragging. They say flushable wipes. I mean, they will go down your toilet, but they're still not flushable. And I can tell you that there have been cases where we have giant pumps. We have giant pumps that move amazing amounts of water. And these pumps can get caught up in these rags. And whether it's these disposable wipes that are technically paper, but they don't tear, or you can get these just people throwing rags, literal rags. And we had to take a pump out, and I have a picture of it at my office, that is just, you would not believe how many rags come off this thing. And it was basically a $500,000 operation to replace that pump because it had been so torn up with rags. Wow. So this has a huge impact on rates because all those things that get replaced, you have to pay for in your rates.
Sure.
So whenever we do that, we're trying to encourage people not to flush anything but what comes out of you and toilet paper. Toilet paper is engineered, so when you flush that toilet before it out of your house, it's broken up and it's basically just nothing. Even tissues aren't engineered to do that, so they can lap on top of a piece of grease or another piece of something, and something on top of that, something on top of that, and then you're going to have your line flooded.
I wouldn't think tissues would be that different. That's interesting.
It is. People don't realize there's absolutely engineering goes into building toilet paper. It's engineered to fall apart. You blow your nose with toilet paper, it will just fall apart. You blow your nose with tissue, it won't. It'll last. So you don't realize that, but it's true. And the other part is fats, oils, and grease. When you've cooked some bacon, you don't pour it down your sink because as soon as it hits something cold, it congeals. Most of the time, it's going to congeal in your sewer line, so your house is going to get backed up, and you're going to have stuff coming up in your basement. You're going to have coming up out of your toilets. But if it gets past yours, it gets in one of our sewer lines, and then it can back up and back up. We had a case in Farmington Hills a few years ago where 15 apartments were flooded. First floor apartments were flooded with sewage because a line out in the street had been clogged with grease from a McDonald's up the road, and boom, 14 apartments had sewage in their floor, and it's nothing that can be helped. It's not a defect in the system. It's just that a restaurant was putting too much grease in their line, or homeowners putting grease in their line, anything like that. It is surprising how fast it congeals, and it can have a huge impact on your home. So, again, if we just in Oakland County last year, we had $375,000 in cost just for lead. I mean, just for fat in lines, going out to people's and cleaning up lines. So it adds up, and again, that goes on everybody's bills. Sure. So the more you can refrain from putting fats, oils, and grease, and anything other than toilet paper in your toilet, you're going to have less problems, and your rates won't go up.
Keep it to just what comes out of you and toilet paper.
That's all that should go in a toilet.
Fair enough. So is there anything else residents can do to help protect the infrastructure, aside from just kind of being smart about what they flush and things like that?
Stormwater, please never, if you see anybody, we have a hotline for polluters. We get probably 50 or more calls a year, and we've saved millions of dollars of pollution. Just from somebody seeing somebody pour oil from changing your oil into a storm drain. If you see that, let us know. We will enforce it. We will go there and find it, and and contain it and get it out, and then fine whoever did it. So solving pollution is everybody's hands. I mean, if you see somebody do something, let us know. Go to my website, report us to our office, and we will look into it for sure. And that's prevented a whole bunch of pollution over the years. So we depend a lot on what people tell us.
Sure.
If you see a sheen on water in a storm drain or anything, let us know. That means somebody's dumped some oil.
Right. Maybe as we're kind of wrapping up here, I think you guys just had an annual report kind of come out. Can you kind of tell us like what kind of information is that, or if people want to read up on it, where they'd find it?
We do an annual report every year. We take it to every community. Most libraries have copies. And what it does is it goes over, the most important thing it goes over is what our budget is. I have a budget of about $400 million, including all the funding we do. So we do operations all over the county. In that annual report, we have reports on our educational programs that we do. We have reports on the big projects we're doing right now. We're doing several really cutting-edge projects in Oakland County that they're going to serve our future residents extremely well for many years to come. We're doing some projects in Pontiac that are going to help the city. Independence and other communities, so you send part of your sewage to Pontiac for treatment, which saves you guys money, and it helps Pontiac rebuild their plant that they've had for many years, but it's been in rough shape for some years. So communities all over, there's 13 communities now that send their sewage, part of their sewage, to Pontiac, and all those communities are saving money by doing that. So we're doing projects in the south of the county around stormwater. We're doing a lot of projects up in the northern part of the county around drains and things. So we're very, very active, and this annual report has information on all that. Again, awesome. It's on my website, an electronic version. We have it on sites all over the Oakland County. Again, my website is oakgov.com, oakgov.com/water, and we have just all kinds of information there.
Awesome. Well, is there anything else you want to mention to the audience before we kind of wrap up?
Well, again, we do services for every community in Oakland County, one way or another. My phone number at my office is 248-858-0968. I'm always willing to listen to anybody who has an issue or a question or anything I can do to help you. If you want to help, if you want to volunteer for some of our programs or anything, we're always looking for volunteers too. So this is a very collaborative office. We work with communities, we work with local offices, we work with residents, and things like you guys are in the Clinton River Watershed. We work with the Clinton River Watershed Council continuously. Actually, my chief deputy used to be the director of the Clinton River Watershed Council. So she's known this. This is what she's cared about for decades. So we have an incredibly dedicated staff, and we're always here to help.
Awesome. Well, Jim, thank you so much for coming by and explaining kind of how this works and some things the residents can be doing. But that's all the time we have for this episode, and we'll see you guys next time.